The transport shuttle shuddered as it dropped through the upper atmosphere of Hekarion IV, its hull groaning faintly against the pressure. Inside, 22 cadets sat strapped into their seats, 19 of them alien, 3 human, and all of them first-year recruits at the Galactic Interexchange Academy. The shuttle smelled faintly of recycled air and disinfectant, but beneath that was the clearer, sharper scent of anxiety. Aren Kessler sat third from the front, adjusting the strap on his leg harness for the third time. The buckle kept slipping slightly to the left, no matter how he tightened it. He wasn't nervous, not exactly, but the planet's surface mission was supposed to be a basic 2-day survival exercise. And from what he'd read about Hekarion IV, basic was a generous label. The alien seated beside him, a tall, pale, blue-scaled female named Nivora, turned her elongated head toward him. "You're adjusting it again," she said. "Is that a human pre-battle ritual?" "No," Aren said. "It's just loose, keeps sliding." Nivora tilted her head, confused. "Then why not ask for a replacement, or a tech to fix it?" Aren shrugged. "Because I can fix it myself." Nivora leaned back against her seat, her thin arms folding across her chest as she muttered something in her native tongue that Aren didn't catch. She'd been skeptical of him since orientation week, when he failed to complete the vertical climb as fast as the others. Most of the aliens had 2 or 4 upper limbs. He had 2. And no suction pads. The shuttle slammed into the atmosphere harder than expected, and a few cadets grunted. The instructor's voice came over the intercom. "Ucadans, prepare for touchdown. Once we land, you'll be split into 5 groups. Each group will be dropped in a separate zone. The goal is simple. Survive and reach the extraction point within 48 hours. You have your packs, your gear, and each other. Good luck." The shuttle touched down with a hiss, and the ramp lowered. Aren squinted into the bright orange-tinted light of Hekarion IV's sun. The terrain outside was rocky, uneven, and covered in a strange, fibrous moss that pulsed faintly when stepped on. He stepped off the ramp with his Group 3. There were 5 of them: Aren, Nivora, a squat, thick-skinned male called Drav, a spindly female with translucent limbs named Cyrene, and the last was a human too, Samira Dovel. She nodded at him as they moved out. "Ready to get roasted alive?" Samira joked. "I was hoping for a light toasting," Aren replied. "You know, golden brown, not charred." They moved through the dense undergrowth, guided by their wrist compasses. The terrain wasn't too bad at first, just hot and humid, with low visibility due to the thick spores floating in the air. Nivora took point, her longer legs making quick work of the uneven ground. 2 hours in, the first real challenge hit. Aren stepped on a root that looked deceptively solid. It bent sharply under his weight, and he slipped forward down a slope. His leg caught on a jagged rock hidden in the moss. The pain hit like lightning, and he immediately knew it was bad. "Stop!" Samira shouted, rushing after him. Aren bit down hard as he looked down at his leg. Blood soaked his pant leg around the thigh, dark and already dripping down his boot. The gash was clean, but deep. "Don't move," Samira said. "We need to call for evac." "No," he said, voice strained. "That'll mark the whole group as failed. I'm not throwing them under just because I tripped." "You're bleeding out." "I know. Help me get my kit." Drav and Cyrene had caught up now, both staring at the wound with varying shades of concern and disgust. Nivora arrived seconds later and took one look before stepping back. "That's a deep laceration," she said. "Possibly muscle damage. He won't be able to continue." "I'm not stopping," Aren said. Samira opened her med pack and handed him a roll of gauze and a small sterilizer. He took them with shaking hands. "Hold the skin apart," he told her. She hesitated. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, just do it." He pulled out the suture kit. It wasn't high-tech, just a curved needle and thread soaked in antiseptic. His hands were trembling slightly, but he steadied them on his knee, took a breath, and pierced his own skin. Drab made a noise like a choked cough. "You're stitching yourself?" Cyrene asked, voice thin. "I'm not going to make you guys fail," Aren said through clenched teeth. "So yeah, I am." He worked slowly, biting the inside of his cheek as he looped the thread through the torn skin. The pain was white-hot, but he kept going, sweat pouring down his face. Samira held the skin taut, her face pale. "This is not a normal human reaction," Navora said. "You should be fainting or screaming." "Multitasking," Aren said. When the last stitch was in, he tied it off, cut the thread, and wrapped the gauze around the leg tightly. He sat back against a tree, breathing hard. "Give me 15 minutes, then we move." "You won't be able to walk properly," Navora said. "I'll use a branch as a crutch." Drav looked at Navora, then back at Aren. "That should have taken you out." "Yeah, well," Aren muttered. "I'm stubborn." They rested briefly, and when they moved again, it was slower. Aren fashioned a makeshift crutch from a thick branch and leaned heavily on it. Every step sent pain shooting up his leg, but he kept moving. That night, they made camp in a small clearing beneath a rocky overhang. Samira boiled water using the portable heater, while Drav and Serene collected edible moss and local protein-rich beetles. Navora sat quietly, watching Aren. "You didn't scream," she said finally. "Even when you stitched your own leg?" "I wanted to," he said. "Didn't seem useful." "You don't have extra pain receptors like we do. You don't have blood-stabilizing enzymes. You're not built for this climate, and yet—" "I'm not trying to impress anyone," Aren said. "I just didn't want to be dead weight." "You weren't," Samira said from across the fire. "You kept us going." The next day was harder. The leg hurt more, and Aren could feel the swelling. He changed the gauze, checked for infection, none yet, and kept moving. The terrain grew steeper. The moss gave way to jagged rocks and narrow paths. At one point, while crossing a ridge, Serene slipped and would have fallen if Aren hadn't grabbed her pack. "You shouldn't be the one helping," she said, stunned. "Good thing I was," he replied, panting. By the time they reached the extraction point, Aren's leg was throbbing and he could barely keep his balance. The extraction ship touched down and medics came running. "Why didn't you call for emergency lift?" one of them demanded. "Because I didn't want to fail," Aren said, collapsing onto the stretcher. "He stitched his own leg," Navora said, stepping forward, "cleanly, under pressure, without sedation." The medic blinked. "He what?" "Yeah," Samira said. "We saw it." Later, in the Academy infirmary, after they'd treated the wound properly and given him antibiotics and painkillers, Aren lay back on the cot, exhausted. Navora entered quietly, holding a data. "You should be resting," she said. "I am." She stood at the foot of the bed. "I misjudged you. I thought humans were soft, fragile, easily broken." "Some of us are," he said, "but we get back up." She nodded slowly. "You taught me something important." Aren smiled, then winced. "Glad my leg was educational." She looked at him a moment longer, then turned to leave. Before stepping out, she paused. "Next time, let someone else carry the burden. Next time, I'll try not to fall off a cliff." The door closed behind her and Aren closed his eyes, finally allowing himself to rest. The infirmary lights dimmed to a soft amber hue as night settled over the Academy's upper dome. Aren lay still, his leg elevated on a compression pad that hissed every few seconds, keeping the swelling in check. The hum of diagnostic scanners overhead had blended into the background hours ago. For once it was quiet, no shouting, no moss-covered cliffs, no beetles with too many legs. Just the rhythmic pulse of the medbase systems and the occasional shuffle of the night staff. He turned his head as the curtain around his bed rustled. A figure ducked in tall, with a hunched posture and thin, shimmering bands of bioluminescent skin that blinked slowly in the low light. "Didn't expect visitors," Aren said. The alien's wide mouth curled back, not in a smile, but something adjacent. "I'm not here for pleasantries. I watched the recording." Aren raised an eyebrow. "What recording?" "The one from your suit cam. Instructors archived it. I accessed it through the cadet observation bank. Technically not prohibited." "Technically?" "I'm not here to debate ethics. I'm here to understand." The alien blinked both sets of eyes, top and bottom, and stepped closer. "You stitched your own leg open air, under duress, with no anesthetic, and then walked 37 kilometers over unstable terrain, Aren sighed. Look, I didn't do it to stand out. I know, the alien tapped something into a tablet and set it down. I'm Velk from Cohort 5, Biology Track. You're not in my group. No, but after what you did, the department started talking. You've got xenomedical researchers arguing right now over whether your pain tolerance is a fluke or a species trait. Well, that's a conversation I don't want to be in the middle of. Velk reached into a pouch slung across his torso and pulled out a small vial. This is compound 6W Delta. It helps with tissue regeneration. Works well on my people. Might not do anything for you. Aren looked at the vial, then back at Velk. You want me to test it? No. I want to see if you'd even consider it. Most species here wouldn't. Too risky. But you? Velk's eyes narrowed, the bioluminescence along his forehead shifting to a curious green. They say humans are reckless. I'm trying to determine if you're more calculated than you appear. You're asking if I'm stupid or brave? Yes. Aren chuckled and reached for the vial, held it up to the light. The liquid inside shimmered like it had a current of its own. I'll pass. For now, but thanks. Velk didn't move. You're not afraid it might help? I'm not afraid it might hurt. Velk nodded once, slowly. Interesting. Then he turned to leave. As the curtain fell shut again, Aren leaned back, the vial still in his hand. The Academy had rules about unauthorized compounds, but rules here were more like guidelines with paperwork. He tucked the vial under his pillow. By morning, the med scanners had cleared him for crutch-assisted mobility. He limped out of the infirmary just after breakfast, dressed in standard off-duty blacks, his left leg wrapped tightly with a synthetic brace. The corridors buzzed with cadets, some rushing to simulation chambers, others dragging themselves to xenoethics lectures and language drills. Most glanced at him, a few nodded, one or two just stared, eyes lingering on the crutch. He made it to the outdoor observation deck by mid-morning. The air smelled faintly of ozone, the sky above a mottled teal beneath the Academy dome's atmospheric filters. Samira was already there, leaning against the railing. You're up, she said without turning. I thought you'd take another day. I got tired of sleeping next to beeping machines. She motioned toward the skyline. You know they're talking about you, right? Velk already made that clear. Samira turned to face him. The faculty's divided. Some think you're an asset. Others think what you did was reckless enough to be dangerous. Then they should decide whether they want soldiers or showpieces. Thing is, she said, most of us wouldn't have done it, not because we couldn't, because we wouldn't think to. Aren rested his forearms on the railing. Below them, the Academy's lower gardens stretched out, filled with strange flora from dozens of star systems. Where I'm from, you don't get the luxury of waiting for someone else to fix things. What if you'd passed out while doing it, or hit an artery? Then I'd be a cautionary tale instead of a curiosity. She looked at him sideways. You're not enjoying this attention, are you? Nope. You should. You scared Navora. Aren smiled faintly. That I do enjoy. A beat passed before Samira added, She's been quiet since we got back. Keeps requesting extra training drills. You got under her scales. Wasn't trying to. That's why it worked. A buzz on their wrist communicators interrupted the moment. A message blinked up. Cohort 3, Reorientation Assessment Simulation Bay D, immediate. Samira groaned. We just got back. Apparently recovery time isn't part of the curriculum. They hobbled into the simulation bay 20 minutes later. The room was cavernous, domed, with projection walls that could replicate nearly any environment. Today it was set to a desert. Blistering heat, wide open plains of cracked stone, and a jagged mountain range in the distance. The only unnatural thing was the faint hum of projectors and the slight shimmer at the edge of the world. Instructor Vol waited at the center tall, obsidian-skinned, with no mouth, only a series of vibrating plates along his neck. His language was transmitted through a voice module pinned to his chest. You are here for an adaptive response assessment, the module intoned. No tools, no packs, no instructions. You will be dropped separately. Survive, observe, we are watching. Before anyone could respond, the floor panels shifted. Aren's footing gave way and he dropped. He landed hard, sand grinding into his palms. The sky above was a harsh white, the sun a twin pair of disks bleeding heat in all directions. No sign of Samira. No sign of anyone. He stood slowly, testing his leg. The brace held, but it complained. He looked around. Nothing but rock spires and dust devils. He walked. The sun didn't move. Time passed, but it was impossible to track. His mouth dried quickly. The simulation didn't provide hydration unless you found it. He chewed on the inside of his cheek, scanning the horizon. A ridge appeared to the west. He headed for it. Halfway up, he heard a sound low, clicking, followed by a rhythmic thump. He ducked behind a slab of stone, peering out. A creature lumbered into view. Roughly the size of a small car, 6 legs, armored plating like cracked ceramic and a narrow, twitching snout that sniffed the air. It moved with slow deliberation, stopping every few steps to dig its claws into the sand. Arndt didn't move. The creature turned its head, sniffed again, then resumed digging. After a minute, it struck something. A thin spurt of moisture erupted from the ground. The creature slurped at it lazily. Arn waited until it moved on, then crept down to the hole. The water was shallow, barely more than a puddle, but he dipped his hands in and drank. It tasted metallic and warm, but it didn't burn. The simulation was watching, always. He looked up at the sky, then he cupped more water. A chime sounded near his ear. The environment dissolved around him. The desert faded, replaced by the cold steel of the observation platform. Instructor Vol stood again at the center, expression unreadable. You located a hydration source using indirect observation. You did not engage with the native fauna. You conserved your energy. Acceptable performance. Arn stepped down from the platform, his legs stiff. Samira met him at the hallway junction. "Let me guess," she said. "Giant bug thing? More or less. Did you fight it?" "I watched it find a well." "You getting cautious?" "No," he said, stretching his back. "I'm just tired of bleeding." She laughed and followed him down the corridor. Behind them, another group entered the simulation bay, their voices echoing faintly. Velk passed them in the hall, nodding once. No words exchanged. Arn tapped the vial in his pocket, still unopened. He wasn't done surprising them yet. 2 weeks after the desert simulation, Aren's leg itched constantly beneath the brace. The medtech said that meant it was healing well, but it made walking with the crutch feel like dragging a cactus around. He'd taken to tapping the crutch on the corridor walls, more out of boredom than need, though the occasional spark from static discharge had gotten him a few glares from passing instructors. By now the whispers had quieted. No more stares in the mess hall. Nivora had stopped watching him like he might spontaneously combust. Velk no longer popped up with unsolicited vials. Things had settled. Until the fire drill. It started at midday, just after the interspecies communications lecture. Arn was halfway to the lift when the klaxons screamed through the halls and the emergency lights flashed amber. Around him, cadets froze. "Is this real?" someone muttered behind him. Arn looked up. The overhead panels flickered, then dimmed completely, the air vents cut off. "Doesn't feel like a drill," he said, then turned toward the north stairwell. By the time he reached the second-floor common area, the temperature had risen sharply. Not enough to panic, but enough to notice. The emergency generator kicked in with a low rumble. Red light swept across the floor, casting the walls in a sickly hue. He reached the infirmary wing just as a group of med-aides burst through the doors, pushing a gurney. On it was a cadet Aren recognized from the biomechanics course, a young Avexi, thin-limbed and feather-skinned, twitching uncontrollably. Her feathers were singed, and her breathing came in shallow clicks. "What happened?" Arndt asked, stepping aside to let them pass. "Chemical lab breach," one of the aides snapped. "Containment failed. She inhaled thermogenic vapor." Thermogenic. That meant her internal temperature was still rising. He didn't wait for instructions. He limped after them into the infirmary and grabbed a heat shield from the wall rack. The medtechs were already working, trying to flush her bloodstream with coolant plasma, but the Avexi's heart rate was spiking erratically. Her metabolism's cascading, one of the techs said. We need to stabilize it before her internal organs start failing. Water-breathing species metabolize differently, another muttered, flipping through a chart. This isn't responding to standard coolant. Then we need something else. Arndt stepped forward. Her skin's absorbing the coolant too slowly. You need to cool her from the inside. The medtech narrowed her eyes. You're not certified. No, but I know what a heat stroke spiral looks like. She needs internal hydration, fast IV, not surface application. She's not humanoid. That's not guaranteed to help. She's dying. You want to keep debating? The room hesitated, then one of the older techs nodded. Prep the line. They inserted the IV through the Avexi's dorsal artery. Aren held her wings steady as the line was inserted. Her eyes fluttered, unfocused, and she let out a low, broken trill. You're okay, he said. Just breathe. You're not burning anymore. 10 minutes passed. The clicking slowed. Her feathers stopped twitching. The medtech who'd hesitated earlier turned to Aren. You've done this before. Not on her species, he said. But we had a summer back home where the power grid failed for a week. People were collapsing from heat stroke in the streets. You learn fast when your neighbors are passing out. The Avexi's breathing evened out. She was still unconscious, but the monitor leveled. After the emergency was contained, Aren left the infirmary. He hadn't realized how much adrenaline had been pumping until he sat down on one of the benches near the hydroponics wing and let his crutch clatter to the floor. He closed his eyes. Footsteps approached. You do realize, Navora said. You just overrode 3 senior medtechs. I didn't override them, he said, eyes still shut. I argued. You were right. That's not the point. She sat on the bench beside him. It is to the Avexi. She'll live because you acted. I don't want to be the guy who keeps getting noticed because things go wrong. Then stop fixing them. He opened one eye. That's not really an option. She tilted her head. Your species is confusing. Yeah, we get that a lot. They sat in silence for a while. The hydroponics garden stretched ahead, filled with tall, spiraling vines from a dozen worlds. The air was cooler here, filtered through moisture regulators. Eventually, Navora said, I signed up for this academy because I was told it would challenge me, that I would be pushed to my limits. I thought that meant physical endurance, tactical strategy. I didn't realize it meant watching someone with half my biological advantages outperform me at staying alive. I'm not outperforming anyone. I'm just trying not to die. That's the part I don't understand, she said. You don't approach danger the way we do. You don't calculate or hesitate. You leap, even when you're injured. I calculate. I just do it fast. Too fast. It's not speed, it's priority. When someone's about to drop dead, you don't get to weigh a dozen options. She looked at him. You stitched your own leg with a shaking hand. Then you walked for 2 days. Then you cooled a burning cadet with no training. You're not here by accident. I'm here because my application got approved. That's not what I meant. He stood, slowly, bracing on the bench. I'm not special, Navora. I'm just used to things going wrong. You make it sound like a survival strategy. Later that evening, he stopped by the infirmary again. The Avexi was awake now, her eyes half-lidded, her feathers still patchy but no longer singed. She looked at him, blinking slowly. You breathed shallow, he said. That's what told me it wasn't a surface reaction. I'm glad you're okay. She didn't speak, but one of her 3 hands reached out and rested lightly on his arm. It wasn't gratitude, not in a human sense. More like acknowledgement. A gesture that said, you were there when no one else moved. He left the room quietly. Back in his dorm, he sat on the edge of the bed and unfastened the brace from his leg. The swelling had gone down. The stitches itched fiercely now, but they were holding. He ran a hand over the skin, feeling the roughness where the wound had closed. He reached under his pillow and pulled out the vial Velk had given him. The seal was still intact. He stood, walked to the disposal unit, and dropped it in. The unit hissed once. The door chimed. Samira leaned in. "You're cleared for full mobility next week." Aren nodded. "Good. I'm tired of being lopsided." She stepped inside, glanced at the empty brace on the bed. "You keep doing this, they're going to put you on some kind of watch list." "Already on 2, he said. "Maybe 3. She grinned. "You know what I mean." "Yeah." She leaned against the wall. "You keep proving them wrong, that humans aren't just adaptable, we're relentless. I'm not trying to prove anything. That's why it works." He looked down at his leg, flexed the joint carefully. No pain, just a faint tug. "I didn't want to be noticed," he said. "You were, not because of what you did, but because of how you did it." He finally looked up. With duct tape and a bad limp, with clarity. She crossed the room, tapped the wall console, and pulled up the Academy's weekly roster. His name was listed under 3 new modules: Command Theory, Emergency Response, and Cross-Species Field Medicine. "They're not punishing you," she said. "They're drafting you." He stared at the list. "I didn't ask for this." "No," she said. "But you're the only one who knew what to do when it mattered." The console dimmed. The silence stretched between them. "Next time," she said, heading for the door, "try not to save someone with your leg half-stitched." "I'll do my best." She paused at the threshold. "But don't stop being exactly what you are." The door slid shut behind her. Aren sat back, legs stretched out, and for the first time in weeks, let himself breathe without bracing for the next thing to go wrong.